Look, if you had one shot, one opportunity to seize everything you ever wanted in one moment.
Welcome to This Week in the OMFL Week 2. Thank you guys for tuning in. We got some really great games to take a look at here and some cool things that we can talk about and take a look as the season kind of progresses here early on. Not a whole lot of drama as we kind of learn what teams are strong and what teams are not strong. But we got some good games that we can go through, and let's just jump right into it. So the first game this week that we're going to look at is the Browns and the Raiders. The Browns go on the road to meet this new and improved Raiders, but a lack of offense for both teams leads to a 16-9 Raiders win. The Raiders barely break 200 yards of total offense, and the Browns didn't even come close to that. The Browns keep it close despite 4 turnovers. And it was kept close because of their defense, which held the Raiders to 27% on just third downs. Johnny Football struggled after a really good game last week, while Darren McFadden did the same for the Raiders. Special teams was a huge role in this field position battle, but it was your favorite commish getting off to that 2-0 start with his Raiders winning one at home against the Browns. Let's go to our next game. We got the Ravens, who go on the road and drop a 3-point loss to the mighty 49ers. This was a tough one for the Raiders to drop. Would have been a fun one to watch. Both teams played tough run defense, and it was only the Ravens who recorded a sack today. Kaepernick throws 3 touchdowns, while the rookie Beasley has a much better game than he did last week, but he still throws an INT. The wide receivers actually led the 49ers. A wide receiver actually led the 49ers in receiving. That's a change than what's normally happening over there in San Francisco because he loves him some Vernon Davis. But it's actually Crabtree who grabs 9 for 88. Bolin, Mosley, and Suggs were all each into double-digit tackles. I don't know if this was a sim or just that's the way it really worked out. But either way, this was a really close game. It was a good game. Would have been a fun game to watch as the 49ers go to 2-0 early in the season with a 3-point win at home. The next one's going to be the Eagles and the Giants. The Eagles drop a really big game to the Giants on the road. These 2 teams, 2 new owners, each wanting a win. I say a new owner. It's actually an old owner who's a new owner again. Either way, both teams played great defense, recording 2 sacks each and 4 turnovers each, and only allowing slightly over 200 total yards. It was Brock Osweiler and Foles each struggled as the Eagles turned to their rookie in this game. It was a good game. We watched it. It was on OMFL TV one night, and it looks like the Eagles may go with the rookie as the season progresses here. But the rookie even struggled a little bit throwing an interception. Neither team ran the ball well, but it was Odell Beckham who showed his skills as he grabs 8 for 92 with a touchdown. DRC, Malcolm Jenkins each grabbing 2 interceptions. And if you didn't watch this one, you did miss out on a really good one. This was a great game to watch. Hopefully it was recorded and something that somebody could post up for us. But the Giants get a big win late against the Eagles, and it was a great game. Moving on, we got the Steelers and the Broncos, and Wynn picking up a big win at home against the mighty Steelers. The Steelers lose by 10. The Broncos and their defensive coach put up 31. Wynn is known for his defense, and yet he hangs 31 at home. It was the Steelers who went all passing, going for 340 in the air, while the Broncos had a balanced attack, 246 in the air and 160 on the ground. The new Johnny Football, Fisher, had a great game passing, going for 255 and 2 touchdowns, and Foster bounces back with 20 carries for 158 and 2. Dial for the Steelers grabs 6 catches for 154 and 1, and looked to be the only bright spot for the Steelers. But this was a good win for Wynn at home, and the Broncos look like a fun team to watch this year. Our next game is going to be the Jaguars, who've lost some heartbreakers so far. The Jaguars drop a 2-point loss on the road, losing to the Buccaneers. Both the Buccaneers and the Jags played really good defense. That's what both these teams look to be known for this year, but it was the Bucs defense who would force 2 more turnovers than the Jags defense. Bucs were only 15% on third down, and Chris Houston for the Bucs, Jonathan Cypern, both shined for their team's defenses. Jonathan Cypern for the Jaguars. But it was the Bucs who escaped with a narrow 2-point win to keep their turnaround season alive early on. They're looking to turn things around from last year, and they're doing it with some really strong defense, while the Jags need to decide who their starting quarterback is going to be, because if they can figure that out, they've got a really good defensive team who's going to make you work for the points. But Bucs get a 2-point win at home. Our next game on the docket is going to be the Vikings falling to the Chargers 14-28. Vikings fall on the road. Both teams played really good defense. The Chargers only allowed 23 yards rushing to the Vikings, who used to have Peterson. They traded him away, and now they look to be paying for that. 23 yards rushing is not going to cut it. And the Vikings actually only had 250 total yards. The difference here was the quarterback pressures. The Chargers get 4 sacks and eat up the clock with a better rushing attack. One bright spot for the Vikings was Patterson, who grabbed 5 for 115. Butler gets 5 tackles and 2 sacks for the Chargers. Helps that team get to 1-1 with a big win at home, 28-14 over the Vikings. Next, we got the Panthers, who get a 3-point win on the road in a high-scoring affair with the Titans. This is not that game, so we're going to see if we can find that game, which has kind of disappeared on me. Here, we're going to pull it up again. Here we go. Sorry about that, fellas. So the Panthers get a 3-point win on the road in a high-scoring affair against the Titans, like I was saying. Both teams combined for 7 turnovers. That is going to be a key stat today. It seems to be the number of the week, 7. But 7 turnovers, and the Panthers throw for 403, while the Titans get more of a balanced attack with 280 in the air, 144 on the ground. Davis rushes for 146, Cam passes for 403, and 5 touchdowns. But Johns and Olsen both shine for the Panthers, and as both went well over the century mark receiving. This was an offensive showcase, which finds the Panthers on top with a big 3-point win early in the season. If the Panthers and Titans were an offensive showdown, I seem to be missing all of my games here. I apologize for these technical difficulties that we're having. I had all of this lined up, and it's not really working out the way it was supposed to. But if the Panthers and Titans were an offensive showdown, which is going to be this game, then the Chiefs and the Colts were just the opposite and a defensive showdown. The Colts only allow 114 total yards, and they grab 5 sacks to go with their 3 turnovers. The Chiefs keep it close. They get 3 sacks of their own, 4 turnovers on their own, but it was the ineptitude of the 2 quarterbacks. Is Bray goes for 90 yards, and Luck was unlucky with 3 picks. Very unluck-like performance that day. It was a 6-point win on the road against the Chiefs. That is pretty impressive as the season moves along here. That would have been a fun defensive battle game to watch, and hopefully somebody record that. We can get that one up too. Moving right along here, we got the Cardinals and the Bengals. I'm not going to say a whole lot about this. I am working, the highlights are up for this one. The Cardinals get a 1-point win on the road. Full highlights are going to be posted, so I hope you check those out. I hope you like them. Welsh passes for 2 touchdowns, and Washington gets a late pick to end the game. And it was just a really good game. It's a fun game against Mikey and his team. Our next game is going to be the Jets, the Jets, Jets. Are they for real? Because they win this one 24-20 against KO and his mighty Patriots. They take out the Pats on the road by 4. 5 sacks for the Jets defense. They look to be back, turning the clock back a little bit for that defensive showcase. Geno goes for 246 and 3, while Brady goes for 219 and only 1. Brown grabs 5 for over 100 and 1 touchdown to help Geno have his really nice game on the road. This was probably a great game to watch between two really great teams. And the Jets look to be back, and we'll probably talk about them a little later on here in the show. Our next game is going to be the Bills and the Redskins. The Bills jump out to a 2-0 start with a 4-point win on the road against the Skins. 2 turnovers and 3 sacks were the Achilles heel for the Skins despite a balanced rushing attack. Rivers turns back the clock, going old school with 240 and 2 touchdowns, while RG3, the only thing he could probably do was run around a little bit with 60-plus rushing yards. Skins are in some need of momentum before they can get their team in the W column. Our old buddy Cleveland, who's been around for a long time, hasn't been able to play a whole lot, so he's really in need to get some games under his belt before he can get his team there. But the Bills are on a roll, and they look like to be a team to reckon with in the AFC. Next game is going to be the Lions with a big win against the Packers. Of course, this podcast is being put together after Cap has announced his retirement, which is a really sad thing for the MFL. I'll talk about that before this is all over, but here was one of his last games as the Lions put it all together, and they ride Reggie Bush to a 10-point win late in Green Bay. This was actually a fun game to watch. Packers jumped out early, and the Lions battled back to get it late. But this was an offensive team with 3 turnovers from a ball-hawking defense. It just did Rodgers and the Pack in. Rodgers went for almost 300 and 3 touchdowns, but it was just 2 late INTs that hurt his team. Bush, acting like he was back at USC, goes for 141 and 1, while CJ grabs 2, count them 1, 2, for over 100, 111 to be exact. This was really a good game to watch. It was a tough loss, and I know it drove Cap crazy to be at home and drop it to 10, but Lions jump out to an early lead in the NFC Central, and with a big win on the road against the Packers. Next, we have the Seahawks and the Rams, as the Seahawks go on the road to face the Rams in a huge divisional matchup, especially with the Hawks coming with the win last week, the upset last week, and they actually drop it to the Rams 20-6. Both teams had really similar stats, but it was the Rams who grabbed 3 sacks on the day, not the mighty Seahawks defense. They also had over 50% on third down, did the Rams. Lynch was held to only 18 yards on the ground, while Mallett passed for 2 touchdowns. The Rams show why they are the Rams, and they win this big divisional game that was probably one of the most boring, stat-wise at least, ways possible. This was probably not a really entertaining game to watch, but it was a defensive battle, and the Rams come out on top 20-6. Our next game is going to be the Falcons and the Bears, as the Falcons grab an 8-point win at home against the Bears to pick up their first win of the season. The Bears outpassed the Falcons by double and grabbed 2 turnovers, and they still lost by 8. How is that even possible? I'll tell you how. The Falcons got 7 turnovers. We talked about that number. Seems to be the number of the week. 7 turnovers and 3 sacks. It's astonishing that the Falcons didn't win by much, much more than just 8 points. Cutler was very Cutler-like, with 7 turnovers coming all as interceptions. And Peterson has been very underwhelming with only 68 rushing yards on the day. Dante Moncrief went for 5 for 158 and 2 touchdowns, as Alford and Trufant each had multiple interceptions on the day. And it was the Falcons' defense, our maybe Cutler's lack of knowing which team to throw to, who won this game for the Falcons, as they get a big win early on in the season. Actually, I think I probably just say that too much. They're all big wins because the OMFL is just that competitive. But that's a good win for a team who's really in the thick of things, trying to hang with the Saints over there. The Texans and the Dolphins. The Texans win their first game since winning the OMFL Bowl despite 200 yards in total offense. Lucky for them, though, they were playing the place-holding team called the Dolphins, who had less than 150 total yards in offense. 2 turnovers, 2 sacks, 25% on third down equals a tough game with no points. Tannehill and Savage showed the league how you shouldn't play quarterback in the OMFL, but lucky for the Texans, they have Richardson, who went for 114-1. Texans get that win, get the win that though they personally. For me, I miss having the old Mustang around. The Texans get this win. I miss Mustang being around and pushing for championships and competing in games. But hopefully he can kind of push through with his job situation and be able to play a little bit more because the league's always better whenever the Dolphins are pushing. But Texans show up. They get their first win of the season at home. They take care of business, and their season is well underway as they repeat as champions this year. The Saints and the Cowboys are going to be our last game that we look at this week, and the Saints get a big win at home against these Cowboys, 24-6. Saints have one of the most balanced attacks in the league, and maybe that's because Brees' skills are starting to decline, but they have to be that way, but they do. They are very balanced. They have multiple running backs. Brees dinks and dunks and takes shots when he needs to, but it's their defense which has really shined. This game is going to be no different. The Saints' defense shined and forced the Cowboys into 7 turnovers. 7, the number of inefficiency today. Tony Romo was replaced by the rookie after 2 interceptions, but he actually was no better with 3 of his own. It was a nice game for the Saints' defense and a good win in the Dome, something we can't really do in real life anymore, but that's a different story for a different podcast. So I know I've kind of jumped into this late. I've had a couple of busy days at work, and I've got another really busy week this week with some training that I have to host. But let's look at the games that are left for week 3, see if I can't pick a lock and an upset. I'm going to try to do this every single week. So out of the games that are left, you see them right here. We have the Falcons, Panthers, Bengals going to the Seahawks, Dolphins going to the Browns, Broncos going to the Bears, Redskins on the road against the Patriots, Rams traveling to see Philly and the Eagles, and Packers going to the 49ers, though I think that game might be already done and just not recorded on here. My lock this week, the lock of the week, I'm going with the Rams, 1-1 on the road against the 1-1 Eagles. I think the Rams are going to come out, they're going to win, and they're going to win big. And then my upset of the week are going to be the 0-2 Bengals going on the road and upsetting the Seahawks. Give me a 4-point win against those 1-1 Seahawks. I think your upset this week is going to be the Bengals. I also want to take a look at a few stats here. Some stats that kind of jumped out at me as we kind of move early on here in the season are going to be Mr. Reggie Bush, as he has really had a great year bouncing back. He had a really great year last year, 1,100 yards last year, average 4.9 and 8 touchdowns. But this year, 65 carries, 379 yards. He's leading the league, 5.8 average. He's got a long of 80 and 4 touchdowns. I had to face him this week. That'll be something on the next podcast, but Reggie Bush is looking like the old USC Reggie Bush, even though that speed is declining and the skills are starting to run away for him. He's looking really, really good, and 00 knows how to use him. And then I'm going to a favorite of mine, the youngster out of LSU, wide receiver number 13 in your program's number 1 in your heart, Odell Beckham. And Pepper is back. He's got Odell. He's using him the right way. Odell's got 20 grabs, 320 yards, a 16.1 average. He's got a long of 92. That's impressive. And even more impressive, He's got 5 touchdowns. He's got almost as many touchdowns in 3 games than he did all of last year. This kid is impressive, and he should be a fun receiver to watch and see how that plays out as the year progresses. I want to look at a couple of surprising teams for me, and a couple of those surprises are going to be your 2-0 Panthers. Let's see if this brings it up, but your 2-0 Panthers, that's right, OMFL, the 2-0 Panthers are back, and they're looking strong. They haven't been that strong since Wilson had them way back in the day, but the Panthers staying the pace, and the NFC South looks really strong. You got the 2-1 Bucks, you got the 3-0 Saints, the 2-0 Panthers. That's going to be a fun division. Even the Falcons picked up a 1-1 win this week. That's going to be a fun division to watch. And your Panthers, though, are a surprising team to me as they are 2-0. And up here in the AFC, I got to go, even though, Dunn has moved over to the Raiders, he's still Dunn. He's always winning. It's the Jets, Jets, who are 3-0. They were actually 2-0 this week, for this is the week 2 podcast, but that is impressive to me. They're doing it with defense. They're rolling the clock back. They're playing good. And that's an impressive stat to me that they are back. And here are my 2 disappointments. And we'll do this every couple of weeks. But my 2 disappointments are going to be your Bengals, who are actually 0-2. They've lost some close games. Dalton looks like he's going to be placed on the bench for the rookie Palmer, who actually plays extremely well. Bernard runs the ball well. A.J. Green gets behind the defense. But this team has struggled so far, and they're falling behind. Lucky for them, they play in the AFC North, which is just not a good division, with the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are leading that right now at 1-2. This is a much better team than this. I know that they'll bounce back, but that is a disappointment so far that they are 0-2. And my other disappointing team, I don't even know if I should do this now because he left. I'm really upset that he left. This is a great guy, and I think that he is just agitated with a new game and frustrated with a terrible start, and he's given up way too early. But the Packers at 0-2 are another one of my NFC disappointments. Rodgers has not had a great year. Lacey is under 100 yards rushing. And surprising for me, Troy Nicholas, who used to be a Cardinal, is actually tearing up teams with a 15.7 average and 10 grams. But this is a team that has a lot of potential, has a young team, and a lot of talent on this team. And it's just sad to see Cap walk away. So on that note, we're going to start wrapping up the podcast. I hope that you guys have enjoyed it. We have our gambling threads are coming back. That's going to be fun and something that we can kind of mix into this as we move along, and something that we can talk about. But Cap, if you listen to this, if you watch the podcast, we're going to miss you, man. The league won't be the same without you, and I wish that you wouldn't have walked away and that you decide to come back here pretty soon. So there's week 2 in the OMFL for you. Things are starting to shape up, and we're starting to kind of see some surprises and some disappointments. And week 3 will be here. I think advance may even be tonight. And so we'll get that podcast out to you guys as soon as we possibly can. But I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next week. Peace.